Let's bring in the old 96er, Scott Schultz, who, not to be outdone, is going to put both of his legs up behind his head. What's up, Schultz?
No chance for me to do anything in that realm.
Okay, buddy. An hour ago, we had some severe connection issues here. We got it all rolling now. Here's the one thing. You wake up every day and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. So you roll with the punches, you get it going. Yeah, you know what it's like. Hey, if you don't mind, I told you that we were going to talk about Robert Saleh being fired by the New York Jets. You're a busy guy. You're running a business. You're coaching your kid in high school football. You're a Rough Rider Hall of Famer. But you're following the NFL, too. At 2-3, the Jets fire Robert Saleh. Everybody's shocked, and he had to be walked out of the building, as they say. And everybody's acting like that's a big deal. As I texted you yesterday, who hasn't? I have. Your thoughts about what went down in New York yesterday? Pretty crazy.
Yeah, Roddy. I mean, you always follow the NFL. It's, the league has all the pomp and circumstance and all these stories. And here's a perfect one right here where you got a team, they bring in an all-time quarterback. They need wins now. And here we are 2-3 and they walk the guy out of the building. I was shocked. Especially Perp walking him out. You gotta get the security and make sure he's not stealing anything. And did he steal any jock straps or socks? I don't know. But to me, it's highly peculiar. I mean, you look at the Jets' history with coaches. I mean, both Bowles and who's Gase, they kept them to the end
Adam
of the season.
Gase, yeah.
I get it. I get it that there is some pressure. I mean, they've got a significant investment in Rodgers, and I can understand how, the team owner, he might want to change track, in the past, letting coaches, kind of fight it out and see where it lands, whereas, they need wins now and they need to capitalize now. So it's understandable when you look at it, but it's just highly irregular. I mean, it's certainly not the standard.
Utah Darren writes in and he says, I feel for the Jets head coach. First head coaching job being the Jets is tough enough. Then getting what appears to be a real prima donna head case to come in to save the franchise is a tough situation. I joke about being walked out of the building. Like, I have. But I don't think you have. I don't think you never were, right?
No.
Anywhere? No. Yeah, well, you're not as
I've
dicey
walked
as
people out. I've had to do that in business. I've had to walk employees out and that kind of thing. But you keep it as amicable as possible, and away you go. But you look at the influence of Aaron Rodgers. He's a high-profile, experienced quarterback. He's going to have some say. So I can't not think that he had something to do with this. But again, let's see where it goes. You know as well as I do, Roddy, when we see interim head coaches get thrust into the spotlight, there's not a ton of examples of high success when that happens.
I did some reading on this today, and only 2 coaches in the history of the National Football League have rallied in the midseason after taking over a team to get into the playoffs. Only 2 in the history of the NFL have taken over a team midseason and got into the playoffs, like they're asking this Ulrich guy, who's not even a household name in his own house. Which, by the way, coming up in about 15 minutes' time, we'll preview tonight's NHL games. We're having a good time with our football buddies, talking football here right now. And let's morph. Schultz had a cup of coffee, a Danish, and I think a shower or 2 with the San Diego Chargers and Pittsburgh Steelers, in the National Football League. So you've been in the rooms, you've been on the fields. And I want to ask you this. Them bringing Aaron Rodgers in to change the culture, you saw what Abu was just saying. It's a noble concept. Look at Ken Austin was brought in to do that in Saskatchewan, and he did. But can you imagine how hard of a proposition that would do to put on Aaron Rodgers? You're talking about futility that stretches back to, 1969? Last time they won a Super Bowl with Joe Namath? Like, was it an unfair position to put Aaron Rodgers in? Because it sounds like they just weren't having what he was selling.
Right. Some of it, too, is, a little bit of maybe Rodgers overestimated. I mean, let's not forget that the Jets, they're in the largest media market in the world. I mean, it's New York. Everyone's involved. Everyone's excited. Everyone has their opinion. And if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, he's having trouble right now. And so, you stack that up against, his off-season activities. He's in Egypt. He's over here. He's doing things. He's not getting to the team workouts and functions. And then he blows into town, and you're 2-3. And let's not forget, the ball was in his hands, and he threw that pick the last play of the game. So, a lot of those, when you point your finger, Grandma Tomlinson always would say, you pointing one finger out, you got three pointing right back at you, Roddy.
Absolutely. John in Calgary writes in, and he is paid to have his comment read, but I don't really understand it. He says, Salah was fired. He wasn't traded like Michelle in the NHL. I don't even know what he's referring to. Listen, I'll get to as many of your... Yeah, I don't get what he's saying. I'll get to the viewer comments in a second and questions for the old 96er. But to try and pull this on the road, which I don't know why I would, we've been off-road all show, but the poll question today is, what is Canada's game of the week in the Canadian Football League? Friday night, Toronto's at Winnipeg. Must-win game for the Argos. Bombers announcing another sellout. They've won $1 million in a row. Saturday, it's a doubleheader. Edmonton at Calgary, and the Toilet Bowl brought to you by Mr. Plumber. BC at Sask. And then Monday, Turkey Day, Ottawa at Montreal. Not surprisingly, Riders Lions leading.
Yeah, well, it's got to be. You look at the intrigue of the BC Lions' new quarterback with Rourke and what he's been able to do. He's showing his passing skills. He's a bit of a double threat. He's got 146 yards of rushing in the games that he's played. And of course, I'm a homer for Saskatchewan, and we're in the playoffs. We can better our position, so I'll be focused keenly on that game for sure.
Well, not saying you were the charm, not saying you weren't either. Last time you were on, the Riders were winless in 7, and they haven't lost since. They've won 3 in a row.
3's the streak, Roddy.
That's right. 2's a fluke, 3's a streak. Did you honestly see this coming?
Listen, yes, I did see it coming. And that's because I believe in the team. I'm from the area, so I'm going to have that support. But in my experience in the past, when things get tough, you got to find the little things that can get you on track and take you forward. And I think the Riders have done a great job in the last 3 games of just controlling what they can control and making sure that they're taking steps forward. And then they're slowly stacking them up, one win at a time. And that devolves back to one play at a time. And it's just, you stack those up on top of each other and look where we're at. 2-3 weeks ago, people were livid and it was all burning. And now we're in a pretty good spot in the West.
Jumping back and forth on green and white teams. Cardinal Ryan is watching in upstate New York, and he says it's a frustrating season as a Jets fan. We expected more, and so did ownership. This was the first time Woody Johnson fired a coach in season, so it was a shock to us fans. John Burns in Calgary says Aaron Rodgers is such an ancient relic, it's a surprise he hasn't been stolen and delivered to a British museum. Hey, leave the comedy to us, right, Schultz?
I love it.
From Joe Gunnis. You know this guy?
I know Broken Toe Joe.
He says to the old 96er, by the way, folks, Scott Schultz is a Canadian Football Hall of Famer and an NFL vet as well. The old 96er, who is the favorite coach you ever played for?
Oh, man. Favorite? Oh, it's got to be Ken Austin. If you look at those 18 games of the 2007 season, pretty magical. Kent did not take a misstep with the media, with the players, with situations that came up. So, and of course, it all culminated with that Grey Cup championship, one of only 4 the Riders have. So I'm pretty proud to have participated and been under his wing.
Offensive coordinator at Auburn now, and doing pretty well there despite their weekend game against Georgia. You are a UND grad, and Folks, you should really get me and Schultz out together. We do quite a tremendous public speaking tandem, if I do say so myself. You got some pretty good. You got some pretty good stories. Who was the legendary coach of Penn State who couldn't believe that you were going to UND?
Yeah,
Coach
Joe
Joe.
Paterno.
Coach Pa.
So,
Yeah, Coach Pa.
Papa. So here, as it goes, I'm getting recruited by all these schools. We're from, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, so not a lot of exposure to the NCAA, not really knowing what it was all about. And I had gone to camps at North Dakota, so they really had an in, and so it was a Division II school at the time, and they lured me in. I was the only freshman that got a full scholarship and the whole thing, and so they had me there. And I was fielding calls from, I actually got calls from Stanford. I got calls from Wake Forest and Penn State. And so here comes Joe Pa in Penn State. And I had to tell him, he's like, hey, why don't we get you and the family down for a visit? And I had to tell him that I had committed to UND. And so he says, well, Notre Dame's a good school. They're an independent, so you'll be on TV. And I said, no, Coach, University of North Dakota. And then there was just a pause on the phone. And then he just said, well, good luck with that, son, and hung up.
Coach Joe Pa. What? North Dakota? Well, hey, you wouldn't change a thing. Everything happens for a reason, Schultz. When did you realize that? When did you realize that?
You know how it goes. You just get a little older and you see these things unfold. And, I look at, the D1 thing and going, not going to Penn State. Had I went to Penn State, maybe I wouldn't have gotten on the field till I was a junior or a senior kind of a thing. Whereas at the D2 North Dakota, I was a starter from day one, and I got all that experience. So like you said, things happen for a reason, and that carried me from a small school to a couple kicks at the can in the NFL, and then I would say a nice robust season for a hometown kid in the CFL.
And let's not forget your beautiful wife, who, let's be honest, is way, way out of your league, where you met her at school.
Oh, yeah.
And she's given you a beautiful
Very
family.
much so. Outkicked the coverage there, no question about it. Rosalind sure holds it down on the family side for us, and we're excited. As you know, we got a new, not new. He's 3 years old now, but we've got Jack, who's our youngest and keeping us young and flying around, and all the old kids too. So it all worked out for the best.
Well, just as a college football alum, I just got to ask you how much you follow the college game now, because you're a busy guy. And to be honest, I'm trying to swallow it, get acclimated. It's just so immense, almost overwhelming.
It is. No matter where you look, there's coverage, and there is pomp and circumstance around all of these teams, and it's almost too much to digest now. My buddy has a daughter at Alabama, so I follow that a little bit closer than I would have in the past. But I mean, I'm a guy. I like finding players. So if I hear of a defensive tackle that's tearing it up, or a receiver that's doing some things, I like to focus in on those teams and look at the players, much less than the whole buying into the alumni and the circus that surrounds the teams on game day.
Schultz, this has been fun as always. Appreciate you. I think we covered all we'd hoped to. So you have yourself a great day, and thanks for your efforts. Enjoy the games.
I sure appreciate it. Looking forward to talking to you guys soon.
Thank you, pal. The old 96er, Scott Anthony Schultz, puts the sass in football.